Hey everyone, Lenny Rattecki here for Lenny List for Autism Awareness. Today we're going to talk about how somebody becomes diagnosed with autism. Something known as DSM-5, Diagnostic and Statistical Manual number, edition number 5, recently changed from obviously 4 to 5, and there were some major changes for autism in that. There is no test, there's no blood test, there's no genetic test or anything like that as far as how one person is diagnosed with autism. It's a range. In other words, autism spectrum. It is a huge spectrum, where people will fit inside this category of having somebody with having autism. It's just a checklist. You have to have a certain number of these behaviors that is observable that people will check, and if you get a certain number, then somebody will be diagnosed with autism. The first category, and I'll read you exactly what DSM-5 says, and then I'll kind of explain it to you. Persistent deficits in social communication and social interaction across multiple contexts is manifested in the following: currently or by history. Okay, what the heck does that mean? First one, there's 3 categories in this. Deficits in social emotional reciprocity. Lack of back and forth communications. There is no sharing of interests with other people. Emotions or affect with another person. Do not initiate or respond to social interactions with another person. Now, when I say that, stereotypically you may think of somebody who's kind of, the lay person would think are in their own world. They can't get out. They can only see in front of their own face. It's a huge. I have students. And let me change it. Last time I said kiddos, one of my kiddos saw this video and he's like, I'm not a kiddo, I'm an adult. So you're absolutely correct. The young adults that I teach love that communication, love an interaction with people, look forward to having that with other people. Then there's others, you could walk in a room and they don't even notice you. Okay, deficits in nonverbal communicative behaviors, useful social interaction, ranging from example from poorly integrated verbal and nonverbal communication. Abnormalities in eye contact. There is no visual contact, eye contact with somebody else. This is the thing, people drive me crazy. Make them look you in the eye. Why? Why are we making them look you in the eye? A lot of it, they also use the peripheral vision much more than a neurotypical such as myself would use. Okay? Eye contact. It can be extremely confusing. Look at somebody's face. If you look at somebody, okay, you're having an interaction. We as neurotypical can look at somebody and we can take in the whole picture. Somebody with autism will look and they see the eyes, they see the nose, they see the mouth, this eyebrow, the hairline, yeah. The forehead curls up. All these things are going on. What do I pay attention to? I pay attention to the mouth, to the nose, to the eyes, to the right eye, to the left eye, to the forehead, to the ear. There's just way too much going on. So if I just kind of look off to the side and look peripheral, I can see that person. I know that they're there, but I don't get confused and all this kind of stuff. Next one, deficit in developing, maintaining, or understanding relationships. Different social contexts will have a difficult time. What behavior is appropriate for this time? What behavior is appropriate for this time? It's kind of this is an example. You see a neurotypical person may do this. Somebody's at a funeral and they get the giggles. Definitely not social, appropriate. But we do that kind of stuff. That's kind of a nerves, anxiety kind of thing. Not sure what to do. Somebody with autism, that's not necessarily what they would do, but their behaviors may be out of social context and where they're at. Don't have interest in what their other peers are doing. In my classroom sometimes, all the kids in there, all the young adults, don't even know what each other's doing. Okay, they're oblivious because they're in their own little world. Other times they are trying to pay attention to what somebody else is doing. Once again, it's a scale and it's on a spectrum. It ebbs and flows all the time, just like neurotypical people. The next one talks about restricted, repetitive behaviors, patterns of behavior, interests, and activities as manifested. And a person would have to have 2 out of these 4 for it to be considered in a checkoff to have autism. Repetitive motion, motor stereotypes, types. Okay, lining up items. We see that. Could be cars, little matchbox cars. Could be pencils. Could be paper clips. Could be anything you could possibly think of that can be lined. The markers have to be a certain way. And if they're not that way, it's not a good thing for everybody else. Insistence on sameness. We did it yesterday, this time, we're going to do it tomorrow, the same time, and the same time, and the same time, and the same time. Everything has to be exactly the same. Rigid patterns, greeting rituals. I have students, young adults, who they have the exact same greeting ritual for somebody. It's identical, the same way. One of mine, did you drive your truck today? Did you drive your truck today? Another one, high five. What grade you in? What's your name? What grade you in? What's your name? We think that is social reciprocity. There isn't. It's a one-way conversation. If that person says something back, that's not irrelevant. That person, one of my students they have said their greeting, their personal greeting, and then they move on. Next one, highly restricted, fixated interests that are abnormal in intensity or focused. You think about OCD to the extreme. I remember I had years ago, a little guy. They were doing renovations in the schools and they had the ceilings all ripped apart. And this young dude, he could name all the different pipes, and this pipe was in this, and he could name the sizes and the type of metal and the name of it and all these kind of things. And all I see is all these things going all over the place. But he was fixated on that. He always wanted to go in the hallway to look at all the pipes and things like that. That was his interest. That was to the extreme. Next one, which we're going to also take about in the later videos, hyper or hyposensory activity for sensory input, okay? Indifference to pain or temperature. Could be hypo or hyper. Sounds, textures. Could be completely oblivious towards sound, or it sounds like a jet engine coming off, okay? Excessive smelling or touching, having to touch the food all the kind of time. Visual fascination with lights or movements, light flicking, whatever. You see their hands like this, or cards, or whatever it might be, that light flicking in front of their face, all the different things that somebody does, okay? Next one on the checklist. Symptoms must be present in early developmental period, okay? When they're younger, it has to happen. Also, the symptoms must cause clinically significant impairment in social, occupational, or other important areas of current functioning. You may have these and it doesn't affect them whatsoever, and that's okay. Okay, it has to reach to a certain degree where it impacts them, where you're going to put that check mark for being on the autism spectrum. Also, these disturbances cannot be better explained by intellectual disability or anything else. Can't be explained by something other than autism. When it comes to this, there are now with DSM-5 3 levels. Level 3 requiring very substantial support. These are what you kind of think of as your your typical stereotypical person with autism, nonverbal, the rocking, the hands, they're just kind of in their own world, can't see past their own face. That tends to be level 3. Level 2, there is some communications, simple sentences. They will interact with people, but it's still a limited area of interest, and that's about it. Level 3, requiring some support. Deficits in social communications, but they will have a communication. They will have interactions with other people, okay? But it's not to the degree of somebody on level 3. Once again, I'm going to say that's why it's considered a spectrum. We have the high functioning, to those with intellectual disabilities, autism. They can all have the range. It doesn't mean level 3 or level 1 is easier. It's just on a spectrum. They experience autism differently. I am not a doctor. Only a doctor can prescribe somebody with a diagnosis or diagnose somebody with autism. So if any questions, please consult a medical professional. If you have anything, if you want to ask me, just an average guy in Central Pennsylvania trying to make a difference. Any questions, DM me, Instagram, Facebook, LennyLifts1@gmail.com. Check out and subscribe to Lenny Lifts on YouTube. Hitting it big, hit double-digit YouTube views the other day. Thanks, Mom. So that means, you know what that means? I'm getting big time. I get double digits. So get out there, have a great day, and be kind.